Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk about Black History Month. The month that is a celebration of my people, because I am a black man and everything. And it's about all our accomplishments, all the oppression that we have gone through over like centuries of living in like America and stuff like that. So I'm here today to talk to you about finally understanding why Mark Cherry has a hard time writing people of color and, more importantly, black characters. So this will mostly just pertain to that of the black family from Desperate Housewives season 2, the Apple Waifs, I think they're called, or Apple Waits, and the Miller family from Devious Maids season 2. And so this took me a while to figure out. And to tell you the truth, I completely I stopped thinking about the family from season 2 of Desperate Housewives. It was about like 19 years ago, so I just haven't been thinking about it. However, I've recently just started watching another Marc Cherry show called Devious Maids, a show that depicts Latino maids. And that's literally all they do. And so a lot of people in the Latino community were outraged about that. And there are pretty much on that show, there are tons of white people, a couple of Latinos, even though it's supposed to be a Latino show, based on a Mexican show. And there are very few black characters on that show. And then there's a couple of Afro-Latino people. And so I've talked about that show recently, Devious Maids, just a while back. And so I've always wondered, why the heck every time there's a person of color, they're not always depicted right on his shows? Why is it normally when there's a black character on his shows, they're depicted in the worst way possible? And I'm just kind of like, could he be racist? Could he just not have people of color that's his friends? Like, what is the deal? Because he has been accused of it by like people in the past, and a writer from Desperate Housewives, an Asian writer from 20 years ago. So I'm all like, what is it? What is the deal and everything? And so as I started watching Devious Maids, like, you know, that got me talking about like the black family of like season 2 of Desperate Housewives, because there's a black family in Devious Maids that is just terrible. And I mean just terrible. And the reason why that caught my notice is because they were the first black family on Devious Maids. In fact, they're the only black family and the only black rich people on Devious Maids. Every other black character on that show is like, there's 2 that have been like butlers, and 1 was written off, and 1 actually had a recurring role in 2 seasons, and for the most part those are good guys. Then there's a couple of Afro-Latino people, and their personalities vary, but then, you know, he killed off 1 black character, and I'm just kind of like, dude, what is your problem? Like, what is your problem? So this led me to do a little research. And when I did a little research, the Asian writer lady from Desperate Housewives said she was the only person of color in a writing room of 10 in season 1. Then she was fired towards the end of season 1. So then I'm just kind of like, So then I read an article where it says there's only 2 women who are the writers of Devious Maids. That is not technically true. After I did some research, it turns out, okay, with the 4 seasons, there's only about 2 to maybe 3 female writers per season. And then they'll get rid of them and bring somebody else in. So there's always 2 to 3 different female writers in those 4 seasons, and only a few of those women, not all of them, are actually Latina. The rest of the writing staff is male and white. You can probably see where I'm getting at. So after looking up every writer's picture and stuff like that, I have now determined why this man can't write. Not only he can't write Asian people, he can't write black people, he can't write Italian people, he can't write Jewish people, and he cannot write black and Latina. And the reason for that is because pretty much every person on his writing staff is white. And I kid you not. Here is the writing staff for season 2 of Devious Maids. there is not a single black person on that writing staff. And here is the writing staff for season 2 of Desperate Housewives. Once again, not a single black person. And then I'm going to add this one in, the Why Women Kill season 1, because there's a black woman on that show. And I've already told you my problems with her. Once again, there is not a single black writer on season 1 of that show. And so the problem is, the reason why he can't write an authentic black person, the reason why he always makes stereotype like people of color, the reason why he just can't write people of color in general is because he has white people writing these characters. And that right there is the problem. So with season 2 of like the Apple Waits and the Miller family of like season 2 of Devious Maids and stuff, there's a problem with both those black families, you know, and there's a problem when it comes to season 2 of his shows. Every season 2 sucks. Like Why Women Kill, Devious Maids, Desperate Housewives, every plot that's going on with all the characters just suck. He has a season 2 problem as well. But when it comes to having a black family on these predominantly white shows, and even Devious Maids is a predominantly white show, even though it's supposed to be labeled as like a geared to be like a Latino show, but it really isn't if you pay attention. There's actually more white, like main and recurring characters and even guest appearance characters than there are Latina and stuff. And so like, when it comes to like, you know, him and these characters of color, but mostly like those 2 black families I have talked about, if you don't have at least one or a couple of black writers, you're not going to get an authentic black character. You're going to get someone's perception of what a black character is. And because Hollywood is the way it is, and this country is the way it is, it's not always going to be presented in a very healthy way. Let's just put it like that. Because for the most part, they don't understand what it is to be black. They have a perception and an observation. Now, I'm not saying at all that like non-black people can't write black characters, because they can. And because like I said before, it's a perception and it's an observation and everything. But when you don't put your best foot forward, when you don't put your best writers forward, and then they write some crap like this, then there is a problem. And so if they were to have black writers in the writing room, they would have somebody be all like, hey, you know, this storyline isn't very cool. It's a little offensive. And these certain phrases you're using are kind of offensive as well. Because in both Desperate Housewives and Devious Maids, there are 2 white characters that point, like they basically say, well, okay, it's kind of hard to say. Okay, so it basically is like when there's a black character, they point out the person's black. Like in season 2 of Desperate Housewives, Bree, as you know, is there a black man underneath your bed? She could just say, is there a man underneath your bed? In Devious Maids, one of the white characters has a foster kid and presents it to like her husband, and he's like, oh, you brought me a little black kid. And couldn't he just say, oh, you brought me a kid or something like that? Why did they have to say black? Then in Devious Maids, somebody uses the term slave. They're like, oh, you're working that person like a slave. Now, they're not talking about a black person. I forget who it was. Or maybe it was a white person talking to a Hispanic person. But they use the term slave. And, you know, as a black person, we don't like hearing that. Then, when they finally do bring in another good black, finally a black good character in Devious Maids, he has a poster on his wall of a monkey with a hat and a bow tie smoking a pipe. And I'm just kind of like, did you have to have him have a poster of a monkey? So it's kind of like if you were to have like a black writer they might be all like, hey, you might not understand this, but this is like offensive to us, you know what I'm saying? And that's not really cool. But he doesn't have that. All he hires are white people and stuff. That would be the equivalent of saying like, oh, okay, you're gonna make an all Asian show, but none of your writers are gonna be Asian, and they're just gonna be like another color. Like it'll be something like that. Like, could you imagine if, say, like somebody made an Asian show and all the writers were like, I don't know, black or Hispanic or Italian or something like that, and not a single Asian person to give you that real Asian experience? Like it would be like that. Like, look at the show All American. All American is on the CW, and they have a spin-off show, and it's a predominantly black show. And in this show, yes, they do have writers that are white and other races and stuff, but they also have black writers as well. And you need that. Like, you need people's personal experiences. You need their perception of how they're viewed in this country and stuff. You can't always do that when it's not that race. It just doesn't work out that way, because some people be all like, oh, there's no such thing as racism. Oh, there's no such thing as systemic racism and blah, 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 blah. What are they talking about? So I'm just going to write this gibberish for like this character. And that's basically what they did in like those shows that I mentioned. In Desperate Housewives, first scene you see on season 2, the first black family ever on that show is a black man in handcuffs in a basement because his mom put him down there because she thought he killed somebody, but it was the other brother who killed somebody. And so you have the cops shooting the actual brother who murdered somebody, but yet when the white characters go around killing people on that show, the cops don't never shoot them. They get to go to jail and everything, but the black man gets to get shot. Then in Devious Maze, this was one of the worst families I've ever seen. Yes, there are bad families on the show, but it's always sprinkled with like humor, so it brainwashes you into thinking they're not bad. And so when you have this black family, it is no humor with them, and that's something I've noticed with Desperate Housewives as well. See, there are bad white characters, there are bad Hispanic characters on these shows, but they're always infused with humor. So it tricks your mind into thinking they're not as terrible as you think. They're not as racist as they are, because in Devious Maze, there are 2 characters that are very racist towards Hispanic people, but they're always sprinkled in with humor, so you don't pay attention to it. But with these black families that they had, I'm talking about the 2 black families, not other black characters. The 2 black families, there's never no real humor behind it that make their bad actions make you forget about it. They're just terrible people. In Devious Maze, you had that one black woman who smacked this other woman's kid, like beat the kid and everything, like gave him a spanking and tried to justify it and this and that. And the mom's like, you don't spank my kid and you don't spank other people's kids and blah, blah, blah. And the woman was just trying to justify something like, yes, you do spank other people's kids when they act out. It's like, no, you don't spank other people's kids. That puts you 6 feet in the ground and stuff. Then you had like the father / grandfather who made his teen daughter give her kid up for like adoption. And then when the daughter or the granddaughter came looking for her mom, the grandfather's all like, your mom don't want nothing to do with you, which was a complete lie. So it pissed her off into thinking her mom didn't want her. And so when she finally did see her mom, she punched her dead in the face. Then when the mom found out about the lie, she grabbed a bamboo stick and was gonna kill her own father. I'm just like, who writes this crap? And then you had the nephew steal all the uncles like money because he's rich and try to use it for your own. And it's like, is this really what they think of black people and stuff? And it's just kind of like, and it's because there are no black writers in his shows. And with 3 very popular shows that he has had for a span of like 20 years and stuff, if he had well, actually it says, okay, 20-year span, but 14 years altogether. There hasn't been a single black writer to write none of these characters and stuff. And it doesn't feel real, and it doesn't feel authentic, and it comes off as offensive. Even somebody who was on his show once, Vanessa Williams, she complained that she stopped watching the show after season 1, after she saw that family, or after season 2, because she saw that family in season 2 that I mentioned, because she loved it in season 1, but she did not love season 2, and so she stopped watching the show until the casting people came around, but like, hey, want to be on our show? And so of course she ain't gonna say no to that, because you know you gotta pay your bills and stuff. And her character was a mixed bag. She was all right, but she was terrible as well, but she was all right. And also mirrored with a little bit of humor, so you kind of don't think the bad stuff she does is all that bad. But for the most part, she was all right, but still written to be like all those other characters. Now, in defense of season 2 with that terrible family on Desperate Housewives, it was never intended to be a black family. It was intended to be a white family. He auditioned tons of white stars to play that role, but they turned it down. So with the show realizing, hey, we have no diversity on the show other than just that of a Latino family, and people have complained that the show is too white. And since no white person wants this role, let's cast a black person in this role. And this is what they do in Hollywood, especially on his shows. Every time they need a terrible character and somebody else passes it up, they always end up picking a person of color. Like when he had the Italian dude kill this dude by mistake and then chopped up his body and tried to murder other people. And we all know the stereotype with Italian people is that the stereotype is that they're mobsters and everything. And don't even get me started on the Jewish kid on the show, because that dude just, oh my God, dude, he's worse than Howard from the Big Bang Theory and stuff. Like, he basically was all in love with this woman, stalked her and everything. Then when he couldn't have her and thought somebody else was going to rat him out, he went up and straight up shot that person and shot a couple other people and killed somebody. Then the first Latino father in like Devious Maids, we don't know nothing about him in season 1 other than he likes to make rude jokes. But then by season 2 and 3, oh, he's a cheater, and he's been cheating for a long time, and he's a horn dog. And then when he lied to his wife about coming back, he only did that because his new girlfriend kicked him out. Then they shot and killed him and stuff like that, which is another problem he has with these characters. They tend to want to kill and write off like people of color. They will either write them off or kill their characters off. And the only time a white character is ever like killed or written off his show is when he has an actual personal problem with that star, like Nicolette Sheridan. So yes, this now explains why he can't write black characters that well. It's because his entire writing staff, there's not a single black person to write these characters or to correct people writing these characters. This man claims he has learned a lot since working on Desperate Housewives, and that sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he gets it wrong. He is still getting it wrong. Like, how you gonna make Devious Maids a Latino show and there's more white people than Latino people in the show? And how you gonna make them all maids and stuff like that, you know? And it's just kind of like, that pissed off the Latino community and stuff. And it's based off of a Mexican show. Happy Black History Month, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.